The link element is an important part of the HTML head and serves many important purposes. It's used to connect the current document with something outside of it. This external resource can be an icon for the site, like the little picture you see on the tab of a web page, or the icons you see on the home screen or mobile apps. It can also be a CSS file that we want to include in our HTML document. While we can use this element in the body, it's not a good practice. It's generally recommended to keep our link elements separate from the body and put them in the head instead. Hello guys, welcome again. In the previous lectures, we learned how to add a title to our HTML document. The title text shows up in the tab of the browser, but there is something else we need to include, and that's a favicon. A favicon is a tiny icon that shows up next to the page title in the browser tab. To define a favicon in HTML, we use the link tag. Alright, let's add that to the head element. Okay, we want to talk about something you might have noticed. This element we're looking at doesn't have a closing tag or any content inside it. In previous lectures, we learned that most HTML elements are made up of three parts: an opening tag, a closing tag, and the content in between. But there are a few special HTML elements that only need an opening tag. These elements are called void elements. A void element is an element that cannot have any child elements, and some examples of void elements are link, input, and img. Okay, as we said, void elements only have an opening tag. We should not include a closing tag for them. Sometimes, for better readability, certain code formatters add a trailing slash to the opening tags of void elements. These tags are known as self-closing tags. It's important to understand that self-closing tags don't actually exist in HTML. If we include a trailing slash in a void element, HTML parsers will simply ignore it. But adding the slash can make the code easier to read and understand. Now, let's go back to talking about the link element. One of the most important attributes of the link element is href. We use this attribute to specify the location of the resource we want to link to our HTML document. In this case, we want to add an icon as a favicon, so let's set the address for the icon. The icon is located in the root directory of our app. In the URL, you can see that the // represents the current directory relative to the index.html file. Next, let's add the name of the file. It's recommended to name the favicon file as favicon and place it in the root directory of the website. But remember, we can actually name the favicon file anything we want. There are no strict rules about it. Okay, let's talk about the next attribute, which is rel. The rel attribute is a way to describe the connection between a linked resource and the web page we're currently on. When it comes to the favicon, the value of the rel attribute should be set to icon. To find a list of valid values for the rel attribute, you can check out the link provided in the description. Now, if we look at the page, we'll notice the favicon of our document displayed in the tab of the browser. If you can't see it, try refreshing the page by holding down the Ctrl key and pressing F5. Alright, there are additional rel values that we can use to indicate special icon types for various mobile platforms. This means we can include different icons on the same page and the browser will pick the most suitable one based on the situation. It does this by considering the hints we provide through the rel and sizes values. Now, we have another attribute called sizes. This attribute informs the browser about the size of the icon. Remember, we should only use this attribute when the rel attribute has a value of icon. Alright, besides sizes, we also have another attribute called type. The type attribute is used to describe the type of content in the linked resource. To use the type attribute, we need to provide a specific type of content, like text/HTML or image/PNG. These types are called MIME types. Okay, both the type and sizes attributes provide helpful hints to the browser, allowing it to select the most appropriate icon for the situation. Alright, let's talk about using the link element to load CSS files into our document. For instance, we can create a file called index.css. In this file, let's set the color of h1 elements to green and the color of p elements to blue. Now, to connect this CSS file to our document, let's add a link element. For the rel attribute, we'll set it to a style sheet. And for the href attribute, we'll provide the path to the CSS file. Once we do this, we'll notice that the styles from the CSS file are applied to the document. Okay, another useful attribute is called media. This attribute allows us to specify when the resource should be loaded. For example, here, let's set the value of media to screen and parentheses max dash width colon 600 px. In this context, when we say screen, we're talking about the visible area on devices such as computers, laptops, tablets, or smartphones. By adding max width to 600 pixels, we indicate that the resource should be loaded when the screen width is 600 pixels or less. As you can see, after adding this attribute, the text color goes back to black. Let's make the window smaller until the resource is loaded. Once we reach a width of 600 pixels, the text color will change. Alright, the link element has interesting attributes for performance and security. These attributes include cross-origin, integrity, and the preload value for the rel attribute. We'll talk about these features later on. Additionally, there are more attributes that can be used with the link element. If necessary, we'll also talk about these attributes in the future. Okay, done. See you soon.